Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to our session today, which is new opportunities for events in the metaverse. We have a really great panel with huge amount of experiences from the beginning of time of tech through to the emerging of tech of where we're going today, with a huge amount of also hands-on experience, which we're going to be exploring during this topic. I'm going to introduce our three speakers. So we have Leonard Schools-Weber from Visualizing Ideas and the founder of Visualizing Ideas. We have Robin Raskin, again, another founder of the Virtual Events Group. And then we also have David Adler, also founder of BizBash Media. I'm going to allow each speaker to introduce themselves because they will be able to give a great introduction of themselves. And I'm going to kick off with Leonard to start with. Leonard.
Hello, everybody. I'm Leonard Schultz-Weber. I'm the managing director and founder of Visualizing Ideas. We are an event management company that brings event technology to life. In my former position as a healthcare manager for one of the largest pharmaceutical companies, we realized that there is a lot of demand for personalized and individualized event technology solutions. And at some point, it was just the perfect timing for me to start up with my own company that really brings event technology to life. We're not really tied into any specific solution in order to make sure that we are bringing the event technology to the client and not vice versa, because you have been locked into any year-long contracts or even annual contracts that automatically renew. And with that, we have been emerging over the past 7 years into a market where event technology really just needs to fit, and brought in a couple of variations around this to really make sure it runs as expected. And with that, I'm more than happy to also join this panel to speak a bit more about this particular upcoming metaverse, where we do see a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities around it.
Thank you. And then let's go on to Robin Raskin.
Well, hello, everybody. Glad to be with you. I'm going to give you my life in 3 acts because there really were. My first act was in publishing, and I was the editor of PC Magazine at that miraculous time when Bill Gates was writing DOS and Steve Jobs and Wozniak were designing computers in the garage and Nolan Bushnell was creating Ataris. So that takes you sort of way back. Second, after print publications sort of collapsed, I worked for Yahoo and did not love publishing on the web. So I started an events company that looked at technology within lifestyle. So I invented digital health shows, digital money, high-tech retailing. I wound up with CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, as my top client, and then I sold them that company. And I started the Virtual Events Group, where I am now, which is at its core, a big database of everything you need to make better events. And what we talk about at the Virtual Events Group with our members is how to make better meetings wherever they happen, whether they're live, whether they're hybrid, whether they're in Mars, the Metaverse, or the Marriott. We don't care. There are tools that you could be using to help deliver better, more meaningful experiences and business. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. And David, let's have a great intro from yourself as well.
It's so nice to be here. I'm David Adler. I am actually on the board of Excite Digital, which I'm really proud of. It just launched recently. And I am the founder and starter-upper of BizBash in 2000. Before that, I was in the corporate communications world, which gave me the idea to start BizBash at both Macmillan and Prime Media. And previously that, I started out in the events at 21 events industry by doing a magazine covering Washington social life. And so I was out every night. People thought I was a maitre d'. I only ate things that were cut up on little toothpicks for about 10 years, which was very fitting then. And I'm excited to be here talking about the future of spatial computing and digital. And I've seen everything that has happened. I've seen the failures, I've seen the successes, and I'm totally optimistic about the world of event technology.
Amazing, thank you. So let's dive straight on in. So to start off with, as we're engaging around the metaverse and the opportunities within this space, what would be really great is let's dive into what does the metaverse mean. So from my experience, from clients to other engagements, there's different takes on the metaverse. So you've got the metaverse, which is your VR experience. You've got people calling the metaverse that you access on your computer, and you have click-through experiences, and you're not an avatar. And it seems like there's sort of three layers in the event industry of your virtual event, your more immersive virtual event, through to diving in as your VR experience. So what I'd really like to be able to ask, David, in terms of the metaverse, and what does metaverse events mean to you as it stands?
Well, before November of last year, the metaverse was the hottest thing going. And then the minute AI came out, nobody even thought about the metaverse. I think that we're kind of in the brick phone age of the metaverse. That, we're carrying around our big brick phones and we're thinking this is the coolest thing ever, and then showing people our flip phones, and we're seeing how things are progressing. And we're okay with the clunkiness of what the traditional metaverse is, where you're sitting at your computer and you're involved in a community. But I think that the metaverse is going to be introduced to the world through trade shows and physical events, where people go into a trade show and all of a sudden they get to see the digital double of the tractor that they're going to be exploring. Or so each company is going to create their own experiences. I don't think it's going to be all connected yet. I think we're in this world of what spatial computing. Everyone is fascinated with Tesla. Tesla is spatial computing. It's eyes all around the car that make it work. And that is kind of what the metaverse is to me. And I think that, we're going to sort of learn, like when I started and did the first website for Prime Media, it was like, what is that www thing? I can't get on it. What is a server? What is all this? The vocabulary is completely crazy to everybody. So nothing really works yet, but it will.
And so I think that sort of leads into sort of asking Robin here. So I know in our pre-conversations, Robin's very much with her Oculus Rift goggles and sort of diving on into the virtual worlds and the actual real metaverse. So as a hardcore user, so what's the metaverse sort of to you, and how you could express it to everyone else now listening? And even diving into sort of your first-hand experience and how that's applied to events. So have you been using your Oculus Rift at any metaverse events? It'd be really great to hear that as well.
Not happily, but yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, I don't want to give AR short shrift, because I think AR has a great place in events. We're all very used. It's become very natural to have a QR code to unlock an experience. I think Niantic and Pokemon had the right idea. Google now, if you shine your phone at a building, it tells you about the architecture, where you are. So AR, if I like a dress, I can now point to it and find out where I can buy it. So AR is leagues ahead of VR right now. VR is stunningly beautiful. The technology behind it is jaw-droppingly good. The ability to render gorgeous worlds in high definition and to immerse yourself in them is fine. It's really great, but it's a lonely place. Because there's no one event, and people have tried. The most successful things have been on Roblox and Fortnite, when you do a big concert and invite millions of people. But then you find out the millions of people, because of the limitations of the metaverse, actually you go to the concert with your friend, you're not in the same room because of the sharding issues. So you have that problem. Then you have the e-commerce problem. Okay, so I went to a fashion show in the metaverse, and I thought I was just wearing a t-shirt and jeans because that was my Ready Play Me avatar. And then I said, I better dress this up. So I got out of the fashion show, went to go buy something. And actually with fees and crypto and wallets, this thing took me like 45 minutes. And the fees on all of it were double the cost of the dress I was going to buy. So now I'm like really mad. I just go back into the fashion show wearing my jeans and t-shirt and said, the hell with this. My point being, interoperability between metaverses and this. If I'm going to buy a Gucci wallet, I better be able to take it to every metaverse, not just one. So interoperability, portability, I would rather, I'm of the age where I would rather use my MasterCard or American Express than my crypto tokens because I'm just more comfortable. So I think the metaverses that have succeeded so far have kind of like an in-game currency, like Robux. And so until we work out, and we're getting there. So the last point to that is the metaverse isn't going to have one big launch. Like we're not going to say, today the metaverse is here. It's going to be a slow and steady march. Right now, the most fun I've had with events in the metaverse is when people use it's after parties a lot because it's fun. Like you want to dress up as a salamander or a fairy or an albatross and go to a party. It's great fun. It gives people a really exciting glimpse of the future, but I don't really do business in it yet. I save it for the after party or the exploration part of a show.
Makes sense. And Leonard, in terms of a medical, so I understand that you heavily work with a number of medical clients and of course a wider range of clients. And from my experience, medical tend to be quite tech heavy and also quite involved when it comes into exploring new ways to engage with audiences in the event industry. Have you had any of your clients or any experiences, especially during COVID, because we've all come out of COVID, and as you've mentioned, David, Metaverse was at the tip of the tongue, especially during COVID when no one could really come together. So there was that huge expansion. Within your client base, Leonard, and in terms of inquiries or conversations, do you have anyone sort of currently engaging with wanting to do a metaverse event? And when they do engage, what are current client expectations, do you think, or wishes or wants of when they've never done a metaverse event and it's like, they come to you, for instance, for such scenario? Do you have these sort of engagements, or have you had them over the years?
So there is a funny story around this, especially when you mentioned COVID. At some point, obviously, physical events just went down, and everyone was basically just going for Zoom calls, for team calls, for Google Meet, and all of that. And that was already the technical challenge that a lot of people could just cope with as a basic starting point. And then all of a sudden, there were a couple of clients that were really interested in getting additional features, functionalities. Everyone all of a sudden was just talking about the metaverse. And now we had a situation with one of our clients where then we basically introduced a very basic option for an interactivity that goes slightly beyond a typical Zoom meeting, where people could just meet on a website, their camera picks up their feed, and they show up as bubbles. And you could move around, and the closer you get to the next person showing up as a bubble, the better you could actually then speak to each other. And I had some person, because we did have a help desk on that website or on that platform for them, coming up to me and saying, "This is so cool. Welcome to the metaverse." And I was just a bit surprised that they were already thinking that a website where you could just position your avatar or your in-person speech bubble is already considered the metaverse. And I guess that is something that obviously with the pharma clients, for instance, yes, they are very much interested in new technologies, but the adoption rate obviously also depends on the audience type and size. And especially the tendency shows the more in the medical content you are actually working in, the higher the chances are that it takes a bit longer, obviously, to really deep dive into it. And what now obviously is coming more and more is photorealistic environments where people can actually just meet in to really deep dive into something, whether it is a molecule that they really want to explore themselves. And a lot of pictures have been taken beforehand that now look like a 3D model that they can explore. I guess the highest chance to actually utilize then also the metaverse in the end is really the interactivity, because that's something that has been missing out for long times by now, unless you are in a Zoom meeting where we can then just speak freely like we do now. And that is probably something where a lot of clients are just really keen on getting this now and really starting to interact with somebody that is also in the room, and you just don't feel that left alone in that particular room whilst you're exploring something. And then the session element to that obviously also becomes quite important as well, for the simple reason that obviously you can then start interacting with various people, whether they are sitting in Germany, whether they are sitting in the States, whether they are sitting somewhere completely remote, but you can bring in the personality and the person's perspective, not only by doing a typical poll, but they can actually speak up as long as technology allows for it. And that is something that is fairly interesting, I guess, to most of our clients at the moment. How do we bring the people in that they can speak up and really have a voice and have the feeling that really people are feeling also being heard?
I think that leads us quite neatly onto sort of the next point, because all three of you have had a different take and a different expression of the metaverse, and also different experiences. So I think it's fair to say, what is the current state of the metaverse? Is it sort of going into a website and being a bubble and interacting, or is it sort of diving into the Oculus Rift world and putting on goggles? Is the current state of the metaverse where it needs to be today that allows us to maximize opportunities? So David, what is your current sort of take on the metaverse? So, and when I say take, what that sort of extends to, how do you see it in your professional world and your experience as of now to delivering a metaverse event? So, where is it at as of today? That's good, and where does it also potentially need to be?
I think that there's two separate worlds of the metaverse. There are people that are digital natives that are growing up in the gaming world and the Twitch world and things like that, which will naturally are already in the metaverse. That their metaverse is pretty well defined, and they live it and they understand it, and they're gaming in it and they're doing everything in it. In the B2B world, which is more my area, it's going to be, how do you make? I always say that, I think I keep saying this, that the purpose of technology is to make what was complex trivial. And if you can go drive a tractor and test drive something to buy it and get a sense of it, then it becomes practical. And it's not even the metaverse. It's that way to experience the sales process, or go at 10, go to the hotel and sort of live in the room for a minute. And it's not even going to be the technology. It's all about sort of what makes something trivial to explain. So to me, that's when the metaverse, which is probably not even the right word for it anymore, that whatever this is, the spatial computing, whatever it is, will get a more mass adoption.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that, really, and anyone else feel free to join. The metaverse probably needs to change its name, or come up with a different element, because it seems quite broad. In terms of the metaverse and the immersive parts and that engagement element, and sort of coming away from Twitch, how would a client, or how do you think a client in business B2B world can take the Twitch and those sort of platforms and actually make a successful event delivery within the B2B world? Because there's many advantages to virtual solutions, the metaverse, global reach, accessibility, no cap to audiences, immersive experiences. But sometimes, or a lot of the time, I think it's the same as just having an app. Just because you've got the tech, there's a lot that do it wrong, or there's a lot that use it for the wrong reasons. So to be able to maximize your global reach, your audience, to maximize the learning of the content. Robin, from your experience of using this software firsthand and your event industry experience, how do you think the industry as of today could maximize using such tech in our world that we're in business to business?
You know how they always said, look to the porn industry and you can see where things are going. So it's sort of similar with the metaverse, but I would say right now in the metaverse, the business case, the B2B case is really strong. Build me a digital twin of the human body so I can test a drug. Build me a digital twin of my city so I can test environmental factors or moving parking grids. Those things are really happening. And we are taking those learnings and that data and being able to play what if we change the traffic light timing? What if we build a building here? And we'll be able to solve problems, medical, business, product prototyping in ways that we never could before. We can build a whole city without lifting a nail or pouring a piece of concrete and see how it's going to work. Singapore is doing it really well. Dubai, there's amazing projects going on. That will trickle down to things. And I always say that it's usually the arts first. The museums they know that they have attendance problems, that they need a wider audience. Museums are doing a great job of virtualizing the experience. So you can go to the Met here in New York. You can find out about the painter and the exhibit. You can immerse yourself. You can download a scavenger hunt for your kids. The secret to all of this, I think, is that it's got to always be changing. You know, I would put on my Oculus a lot and take trips to Tokyo and the Anne Frank house and roller coaster rides, but they never changed. Each time I went, I was repeating the same thing. So I think what the industry has to learn is, how do I make this fresh every time? And we will figure it out. These are the same things that television and every other medium had to figure out about refreshing content and making it a place that you want to be and want to share. Right now, as I say, the metaverse is a very lonesome place. If you're just a consumer, you just go there and not a.
And it's quite interesting you raise that, really. So you know, you travel to different spaces and places, but once you've been there once, you tend to not go back there again, and it becomes boring because you've already seen it. Now in the event industry, you know, you may have the same event, but it's never the same. It's always, what's next? How can we engage better? How can we improve? How can we change the environment? How can we create a followed on environment? So it always touches the senses on a psychological manner and a human manner that amplify the maximize of interaction with humans. So what experiences have you been in, or what experiences do you seek then as a user? So what do you keep, why do you put the headsets back on, and where would you go? Such as, would you go to a museum, or, you know, would you go check out different types of art and etc., compared to not going back to Tokyo?
Yeah, planning. So David's point, planning a vacation, checking out my hotel room. There are in the States alone now, there are something like 200 totally VR colleges, VR universities that you can get a degree from. You can have great professors, but there's the flip side of that is there's a uniformity of every class. You know, it's sort of like the cookie cutter thing. Every class is the same. Every kid is experiencing the same thing. I do think that it's going to be hard to replace. Right now, people are starving for physical experiences, and we're seeing that. They've been lonesome and starved, but I do think that you can have metaverse experiences within physical experiences and physical experiences within metaverse experience. Why do people go to the Sphere in Vegas now, which is probably like the largest living metaverse that's ever existed? And it's because it's communal at the same time that it's experiential and high tech.
But, you know, one thing that Leonard said that I think is really key is the photorealism. The avatar thing just doesn't work. And the reason that it doesn't work is because we communicate through our gestures and our faces and the oxytocin exchanges that actually happen. And that once that, we have to crack the code on that. And that's why, you know, avatars will never replace how you, I look at Robin now and I can connect with her in different ways. At some point, you're going to actually be in the physical same magnetic space that hopefully will be mimicked by the metaverse. Right now, it's a dark place.
Yeah, but for a lot of people, the metaverse has opened worlds for them, whether they're socially isolated, whether they're, have a physical limitation, or, you know, there is something empowering. It's sort of like Halloween all year round about dress. You know, I'm going to be who I want to be for that moment. And that's going to beg crazy ethical questions. Like, I really wanted to know what it would feel like to be a Black person in the metaverse room. And I could have done it, but my background wouldn't let me do it because it was the physical akin to blackface, and but the metaverse, we have the ability to get rid of those limitations. We can fly, we can defy gravity, and that I think a new generation is going to be super comfortable with. I bump into walls and fall off things. It's you can see I'm the newbie in the room. Matter of fact, my grandson's sitting next to me, and we go out and we play together. And I said, "Oh, look, those monkeys love me." And he goes, "They don't love you. They're trying to kill you." Like, I have all the wrong instincts to be in the metaverse.
So imagine going to an event and you've got 1,000 attendees and they sit down, and next to them you've got some over here flying around, and you've got some over here sort of jumping about, you've got some over here being something different. When we sort of bring it back to business, the event industry, of course, delivering an event is captivating the audience, allowing them to bring down their barriers and interact, and also make a meaningful experience from the goals and the objectives of the event. So is there currently a clash with what the metaverse is, how people perceive it, and then how we then bring it into business-to-business events? And if there are clashes, is there an opportunity within those clashes to sort of tweak them a little bit that actually control the narrative of a conference and event? Because at conferences and events, a lot of it is controlling the narrative of the attendees. You want the attendees to, before you create the event, you have goals and objectives of what you really want the attendees to come away with. So do you currently see opportunities within the event industry and within the metaverse industry that maximize the experience? And I'm going to play this as a two-part question. Current part of it, and I'll come to you, Leonard, to start with, is do you currently see an opportunity to replace a physical event with a metaverse event?
So that is indeed a very good question. I do have a slightly different take on that because obviously what is extremely key, and that's something that we do see quite often, is especially for any kind of a virtual event, and that is especially true for the metaverse then as well, is know your audience up front. Because what people are trying to do or trying to really achieve with the metaverse is, because it is technically limitless, you can have as many attendees as you wish, basically, then in this particular environment. So basically just invite everyone. And that's usually the key, or the take that a lot of event organizers then really take, is bring as many in, because it doesn't in the end cost as much as if you would actually do an in-person event. However, in the end, obviously, you're then starting to lose some people, because the content that you're trying to deliver might not be as personalized enough for the people to really then resonate. So what we see quite often is registration numbers go high. People are just in for it because they think, oh, that might be quite interesting. But then all of a sudden, they might just have a one-on-one with their line manager. They might just have something else going on, and they do not turn up. And the main question always around that is, why do they not turn up? And the main reason for that is really that they don't understand what's in for them. And I guess there is something, if it really is supposed to change from going from a physical event to a virtual event, is really tailor it to your audience. And in order to do so, it needs a lot of communication. It needs a lot of understanding what the actual participant is eager to actually get out of it, and what the overall purpose is. Is it really just to network and really just to bring people together? For that, a physical event might be challenging to actually be replaced at the time being with any kind of a metaverse event. However, if it is more around really engaging the people, making sure that we're in line with any corporate values, anything that we really want to disclose with our participants, then this can really make a difference, because obviously it reduces barriers, more people can actually join, but really clearly communicate upfront who's there, why should they attend, and what makes the difference. And then maybe just because obviously we are a technical agency, that always comes in as well, is once you understand your audience, also understand what their technicality background is. Are they sitting somewhere where internet connections are good enough? Are they sitting somewhere where lighting, where cameras and all of that are actually available to make as much as possible out of it? Because obviously, if you're sitting somewhere far remote and you do not really have a strong or reliable internet connection, your metaverse event can be as good as it can be. However, if your attendees cannot really join with that technical setup in the background, then that might also bring in new frustrations that you would probably not foresee at the very first forefront because you have planned such a good event in a virtual space. So that's something that we do see quite heavily. And yes, it does have the potential to actually make changes or make differences, especially reducing carbon emissions, which is for the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, a very big take on at the moment, and bring still people together. But then on the other hand, obviously just tailor whatever is needed to the participants even more, because you cannot make up for that just by gathering the people in the end for a networking event. And that is something that might be a struggle.
You know, what Leonard is talking about is great event organizing, no matter where it is. And it kind of, the art is going to be how to use these different canvases in different ways.
Yeah.
And I believe that we're no longer in the event industry, we're in the goosebump business. In a sense, because if you meet somebody that you like connect with, you get goosebumps. If you hear something that's really cool, you get the goosebumps. And it's how do you make it? I mean, when I've done some of the events in the metaverse, the conversations that I have among the small groups are more interesting than anything else. And once again, at any event is how do you scale intimacy? How do you make it so when you go there, you feel like you're part of something, part of the club, or that you have one conversation or you meet one person? So it's kind of like, how do you use it? The actual programming of the metaverse is really where the issue is. It's not necessarily the technology in my case. I mean, you got to have good tech. You have to be able, you can't be on an AOL dial-up, you know, for people who remember what the hell that is. But I think we're going to get to the point where it's going to be the art of organizing.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, this whole idea of hybrid events that was after the pandemic, that you were at a live event and then you just put it up on some sort of Zoom or video, and that was that's not going to hold. But an event, and you both, Leo and David, you both talked about it, the goosebumps and the intention. And I think at a virtual event, people are, even in a metaverse as avatars, willing to gather around a big stage and watch something together, because but they know the timing. The timing's got to be shorter. They standing around a floor, they're going to want to break off and wander around. Be super intentional about what you want them to do. If I'm planning an event in the metaverse, and it's funny, we're doing there's an event that's been around for 23 years as a physical event. It's called Wall Street Green, and we're about to take it digital and global. Everything needs to be rethought, from the time zones, since it's all over the world, to sense of place and locality. How do I get Dubai or the Emirates to feel we understand them? What time of the day do I put them on? How do I get a glimpse of cultural issues and changes? These are the questions that good programming, I think, is going to solve. And I think when you put AI towards this also, whether it's towards the networking part or the agenda making part, but definitely use the AI tools to plan an event, including your P&L sheet, and you'll be much happier. And so I think
as long as you tell AI to plan your P&L sheet with profit.
Exactly. So yeah. It's very funny. Today I had a contest with my AIs. We each wrote a Thanksgiving poem. I still think mine was better.
Well, I'm sure we all would as well, Robin. I wanted to sort of revert back to David's part quickly, because it sort of raised an important, a good point around intimacy. So you were sort of expressing around when you were interacting in small groups within the metaverse that you were having interesting conversations. Now, going to Robin's point, unless you're watching porn in the metaverse, how do you make these conversations more intimate? Were they intimate? Were they more intimate than physical? So they were, yeah.
Well, I keep going back to the event organizer has to create the agenda. Sorry. I do these things called Jeffersonian style dinner parties, where I'm the facilitator of a dinner party, but I ask all the questions. So you can't just let it happen you have to, I just wrote a book called Harnessing Serendipity, which means you have to actually make it happen. You have to think out these small conversations. Like whenever I have done small groups and the metaverse, someone says, okay, now we're going to have a small group in the metaverse. And this topic is going to be such. Go to the room that you want to have the topic and the conversation with. And I find the topic and I start chatting and I have incredible conversations. Remember that that short-lived website, or not website, where we got on the phones, and not on the phones, but it was online, and we just had these conversations with people on every topic. It was like a trade show on steroids. I forgot the name of it. It didn't last that long because it was like the end of the pandemic. But people want to talk to each other. They want to interact. They want to be heard. So how do you make people be heard? And usually the people in the audience are much better than the speakers on the main stage, because that's where you're going to get more information, especially in the world. So, I mean, how do you create this intimacy? But it's planned.
Yeah. And you take a chance. So when we do live events, we leave an empty chair on the stage because we know somebody in the audience is going to be really smarter than we are about this and have something to say. And we rotate them in, and it's scary. And I have planted people in the audience before, true confessions, because it's terrifying. But so we divide up, the conversation into 4 subjects, and there's going to be somebody with something to really offer in that audience. Another thing I believe in, just in the physical world, is don't sit on the panel in your seats. Invite those people, welcome them in, sit there and shake their hand and invite them into the room and find out who they are and why they're there and why they chose your session. You will learn so much before you start, and then you can act quickly on that. And I think the same thing could happen in spades in virtual events. Why are they there? We used one letter. I'm thinking it may be the same one you used. We took our audience to Scoot this time with bubbles, with round bubbles, and they had smart badging, and you had to tell a little bit about yourself. And we themed it for Thanksgiving, so it had to do with favorite food. What do I do with the crazy relative? We did a lot of fun conversations in a new environment. And I think audiences will, if you script it to maximize the tech, and make it effortless, they will really have fun.
C2 Montreal had this thing where they do conversation pods, and they put spotlights on the floor, and you stood in the spotlight of the conversation that you wanted to have with different people. I mean, it's all about the programming and creating the environment to make it easy for people to connect with each other, because most people are not naturally extroverted and they need permission to talk to each other, especially your generation, because you're so used to being on the phone and looking down. Not that that's terrible, but because I do that too. But you just need to actually, as an event organizer, be the mayor of that event. And you're in charge of everything from getting people to come to picking up the trash and everything else in between. And nothing is passive when you're an event organizer. And so whatever technology, whatever canvas you use, it's still going to be how you program it.
And then in terms of challenges and considerations, and we're kind of talking through all of these sort of points just naturally and freely. In the now, are there challenges that would make you pick a physical event over a virtual event, or a metaverse event, or for you to pick a metaverse event over a physical event? So, I mean, of course, COVID created a challenge for us to all just still come together and interact. Of course, now COVID's gone. That limitation of not being able to come together doesn't exist anymore. And of course, physical events are booming again because people like that intimacy and trying to replicate that intimacy and bringing down those barriers and engage in sessions that aren't the same space each time and, a new environment. What would you advise to attendees listening today and watching this session in the avatars, in the seats that we're going to go sort of have Q&A and interact with very shortly? What should they consider when delivering an event in the metaverse? And I'm going to kick off with you, Leonard, in this question. What would you suggest people should really consider when diving into the metaverse and choosing the metaverse technology as a solution to deliver their event?
So it goes a bit back to the same that I said beforehand, basically, where I really strongly believe that it is all about your audience and what you want to achieve with your plans on making an event a success. And if it is really around networking, if it is really around getting the people together, I think it will be, at the time being, at least very hard to really replace that human interaction with a metaverse event. Nevertheless, obviously, this is possible. You just have to then streamline the content very, very well in order to get this going, and really then reconsider, do we do small groups, as we discussed just a couple of minutes ago, obviously, and that also gives people a voice that potentially might not speak up during an actual physical person event, because they might just be natural introverts, that then brings in new perspectives as well. On the other hand, obviously, there is a lot of opportunities when it comes to the metaverse as well, because first of all, well, the metaverse, do understand it has a budget impact, but probably not as much as bringing people actually together and bringing the larger spread of people potentially then also together into a virtual environment really makes a difference then in the end. So it does actually cost some money, but it's probably not as spendy or as costly as it could be when actually then making it an in-person event. Nevertheless, obviously, you need the communications right. You need to make sure what you want to get out of it. And with that, you can actually make an impact. And I guess that's really then in the end, the core decision, what the main purpose of your event actually will be. And with that, you can probably then also define whether a metaverse event might actually make sense. Or on the other hand, obviously, one doesn't exclude the other. If you potentially then just bring in some people from, let's say, remote positions to the actual event then as well by just mixing and mingling with the actual metaverse. But then it's really key to understand, how do we actually bring the people together that are in the metaverse versus those that actually meet up in person? So that is something that really needs to be streamlined to really get this going. And I see a lot of nodding here. So I guess there is some agreement with that as well.
I want to say that the use case, what you're saying is know your audience. I say that it's also important to have the use case. One example that I think that could be the future of the metaverse is a company. I don't know if you've heard of a group called Daybreakers, where they did these early morning dance things at weird locations in the morning, and it now is all over the world. But during the pandemic, they were doing it virtually. But what they did is they were creating content by creating live songs with composers and musicians, and getting the people in the metaverse or whatever, the digital world, to help them sort of see what works and what doesn't in real time to create music. So I think that the use case of brainstormers, the right use case is going to bring people to the metaverse. If you just say, we're having our meeting in the metaverse, people still won't have a reason to want to go. So I think you're going to need to have the right use case, what Robin has said with the medical world, and here's a new operation. Let's, we're unveiling it just like you're premiering a movie, that type of thing. People will jump. But I think that the use case is going to be critical.
No, I so agree with what both of you said. So think about a product launch. Steve Jobs got on stage and did his thing, mostly live audience. Apple, by the way, just did their last launch with the new chipset virtually for the first time, like all virtually. So there's movement there. But think about if it could be participatory. So there's so much to learn about how a product gets made. And you can actually see in the metaverse in 3D, you can walk around it, you can walk through it, you can experience the engineer's set, you can customize, well, what would that BMW in your, if I look like, if I personalized it to me. So there are ways to take advantage of the metaverse that we're not taking advantage, just to put the exclamation point on everything that you've been saying, that you really have to think, empty out all the buckets and think brand new about what you can accomplish, about collaboration, about intimacy, about, and you can, and it will feel really, really good. So the training thing, I go to events a lot, and I think that everybody works so hard to be carbon neutral or carbon negative, and it's not seen on the attendees walking around. They don't know what you use. So imagine if you had a virtual reenactment of how we did this, how much money we saved, how these events, what happens to the life of an event afterwards, so that attendees feel more a part of the whole experience. And I think that's where the virtual world can play such an enormous part in the pre-event, if it's live, and in the post-event also. So events are no longer have a finite beginning and end, I think. I think that's what has come out of the pandemic. And I think the same thing that's come out of work from home. You will decide there will be some hybrid. You'll be some days in the office, you'll be some days at home. Like the continuum will be much more fluid. And that's what will happen with events. Sometimes you will get up and actually want to make the effort to be there in person, and sometimes you'll want to experience it a different way. But that way has to use the old ploys that works. Games. I just saw Kaltura did an event last week. Julius did a game show, a game show. It's the oldest trick in the book, but it was hysterically funny because it was about events, an event, true confessions kind of thing. And so the old things work, but you have to rethink them in a metaverse world.
Mm-hmm. So I completely agree. And just before we open up our questions to the floor and save the last 10 minutes for Q&A, what I would like to do is bring this session to a close, because it's been really great to be engaging with your really great, intelligent, brilliant minds around all of this. And it's been really great for me listening to yourselves, and they're quite exciting. To sort of bring it into a nutshell, for anyone that's looking to plan a metaverse event, there's a few takeaways that I've got in bullet points from all of our speakers here. So if you are planning a metaverse event, then know your audience, as Leonard would put it. In terms of experience, don't replicate the same experience. Create new experiences, just like you do within the physical event space, as Robin would put it. Going to the same roller coaster or going to the same space every time lowers the engagement and the interaction with your audience, and also the need to even go back. So create new experiences. Scale the intimacy, as David would put it. Scaling the intimacy will, of course, create a more amplified human-to-human interaction that you will remember and take away with you. Blend real emotions and faces. Maybe stay away from those avatars and actually blend in those emotions, and actually being able to express the face-to-face part is still very much of what we live in today's world of being human, but maximizing the advantages of what the metaverse can bring us. And also create immersive stories. So an immersive story, such as a new product launch or a new experience, goes back to creating new experiences. Once you've kind of seen it, you probably won't go back to it. So look to create it a bit more immersive. And for the last 60 seconds, what I want to ask each panel member here, just one question, if you could just answer it in a 15-20 second snapshot, the future. What is for the metaverse to be, in your opinion, all signs, singing and dancing? Are we there today? Are we there 5 years away? Are we there 10 years away? So and the metaverse probably will define quite a lot of our future as the generations evolve and as tech evolves. Are we there today? How far do you think we're away from metaverse potentially being 80% of events compared to 80% of events being physical? So at what point do you think the metaverse will take over physical events in a timeline? So I'll start off with you, Robin. 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, do you, or never?
I think just like every other medium, radio, television, print, they're always going to coexist and take their rightful share of the pie. It's a big pie. So I think they have a place. I don't think they're ever going to be the be all and end all. We're never going to meet in person again. I would urge you all, if you're interested in this, follow the Metaverse Standards Forum. They are a group of industry people from all walks of life who are trying to hammer out the rules, and both the ethical rules and the interoperability rules. It's run by Neil Trivet, and membership is free. It's a wonderful place to start to come up with the standards. And then I think my lesson is, treat it like you do AI. I think most companies that I talk to now are giving their staff permission to spend some time using ChatGPT or Midjourney or Dolly every day so they are fluent. I think that you need to become fluent in this metaverse language and go to as many metaverse events and virtual events as you can and pick the best practices. There are lots of places to find best practices.
And over to you, David.
Oh, no, I'm a big believer in the experimentation. I'm like the first guy to go to the, get the iPhone at the Apple Store, wait in the long line. I think there's going to be a lot of early adopters that are going to be setting the pace for what this is. I don't think, and it's going to have to get to that, whatever that critical moment is, where if we have another world problem where it may be forced upon us. But I do believe that it's there. I keep thinking back to what if we had the pandemic in the 1980s and we had to do everything on CB radios. Mm-hmm. And I think that world events could drive this to faster adoption. And I think that the key is to program how the event organizer is using it, and so that we think out those types of use cases to make it easier for event organizers to just jump into something, whether it's a brainstorm or an education thing or a product launch. That we got to get more finite and more specific in how the use cases are best done. It's the way Canva is doing it for graphics.
And to finish off this session, Leonard.
Well, is it there? Maybe. Why is that? For the simple reason, just think of, as we basically just heard, ChatGPT as an example. All of a sudden it was there. And I think it's nothing you can now bypass anymore, for the simple reason that it will be there within very short span of time, and it will evolve within very, very short span of time as well. It currently does have its hurdles. It does have its technicalities around it. You need to be up for it. But the more you center your events around your participant, probably not much of the one-to-many communication that usually events tend to do when you are meeting in person, the more it actually, you cannot bypass it anymore. And I'm very much looking forward to see in which direction this potentially goes. I think there is a lot of potential around it. We just have to understand in which direction we really want to take it. And are we ready for it? Well, we'll see. And especially the attendance in the end will show whether this will last or not. But I do strongly believe that it will come rather within short time. So I wouldn't particularly, to come back to your question, Jamie, put actually a timestamp onto it. In the end, it's more about an adoption rate that will also be generated by the fact that people will either adopt it or not. But I'm pretty sure with the new emerging people coming also onto the markets, there will be more and more demand for it, and it has a lot of potential to it.
Thank you, and thank you to all the speakers today joining this panel. What an open question, what a way to create an event, whether physical, virtual, or hybrid, or metaverse, however that may be. You can now see us up on stage as avatars. We're opening up the questions to the floor. Please do ask your questions. There's a great team of speakers up on this panel, and we really look forward to engaging with you further. Thank you very much for listening, and see you as an avatar.